we're also, not only that, we're taking these people and putting them up in hotels, giving them food stamps, giving them welfare, and closing schools to house people. Yet here we are, we got homeless veterans on our street, homeless people on our streets that we're not taking care of right here in America. But we want to take care of everybody else's problems, and we need to take care of our own problems right here at home. We've got plenty of people to take care of. I think that we need to focus more on our own citizens than focusing on everybody else's, than focusing on wars in other countries and everything else. We got a lot of problems right here at home, and I feel like we're just fueling the fire. But I do agree that if people come into this country, there should be an easier process to get in, but nobody should come in without us knowing who's coming through our border. Thank you.
Another rebuttal?
Yeah, to rebuttal that. Obviously 9/11 was incredibly sad, and I don't think that is a reason to close and restrict borders to the degree that we have. A lot of that can just create xenophobia at the time, right? For example, when Pearl Harbor happened, we were putting Japanese people into concentration camps or in camps, and just creating this scarcity and this fear mongering around immigrants. And again, I think it is important to note that that was a security issue when it came to airports. Airport security has been strengthened, as we probably know, a lot since 9/11, which I do think is incredibly important. But when we're talking about the border and whether they should be closed or open borders, I do think we should be opening the amount of ports that people can come to legally. Also, before recently, so we had stricter laws, right? Title 42 was stricter. We saw thousands of people deported and also a humanitarian crisis at the border. But now, under the Biden administration, laws are becoming more lax. So there's an app called, I think it's the CBO app, where people can actually, who are seeking asylum, can actually make appointments to come to the border ports and legally come in. And we've seen an influx of legal immigrants because of this app and because of the ability to make these appointments and like pre-state that they're coming specifically to seek asylum, which has created an influx of legal immigration. So I do think this proves that when you make it more accessible, which Charles did say that he wants it to be more accessible and easier, so we do agree on that. When you're making it more accessible, people do come legally and they try to come legally. It's just because it's incredibly difficult, especially to walk on foot, and there's a ton of fences, and also you have to make your way to court. So if we create easier transportation, and also this app is a great way for people to make appointments and be able to come in legally, that is super important. I also do agree we have issues at home. I completely support that. I don't think we should be funding wars in other nations. And we do have a homelessness issue and a homelessness crisis that is incredibly important. But immigration is not the reason that vets are on the street and we have such a degree of homelessness. That has to do with our economy. That has to do with our government not caring about veterans or homeless people. That also has to do with a lack of housing and banks buying up homes and rates of rent skyrocketing. I also think it's important to note that immigrants, whether documented or undocumented, actually pay a lot of money in taxes. This is a common misconception. They still have to pay mortgage. They still have to pay rent. They still have to pay state taxes. Statistically, it was found that they've actually paid in billions of dollars to our economy. So they are really vital for our economy. And I don't think we should be deterring people from coming to our country that was literally built on immigration.
Thank you very much. I think we are going to go to the next question. I think I'm going to do a 10-second warning for when you're, because it's supposed to be 2 minutes each and then 1 minute for rebuttal.
Yeah.
So do maybe like a 10-second to wrap it up. All right. So the next question is, what are the economic impacts of closed borders versus open borders in the U.S.?
I can start. So I kind of touched on this when I talked last, it actually is economically incredibly vital for our economy. Immigrants make up most of the vital jobs that our economy runs on that people, especially naturally born American citizens, don't want to do. So these are farmers, these are factory workers, meat workers, basically low-skilled jobs that no one wants to do. So for example, during the Great Depression, all of these immigrants were working these super vital, important jobs because no one else wanted to work them. And during the Great Depression, all of a sudden, the natural born American citizens didn't have jobs. They were trying to take the jobs of the immigrants and the people that came to America and were working these low skill but vital jobs to our economy, which I think is the same rhetoric that is happening now. They're not taking jobs. They are super important for our economy. They're running a lot of these vital jobs like farming. And also, statistically, immigration actually boosts our economy. Due to immigration, economics actually predicted a basic boost in global GDP, which would be about 16%, which I think came out to like $40 trillion. And so overall, open borders would just create more jobs, more money, more flow for the economy. I do have an issue with, I do support legal immigration. I believe immigrants should have documentation. I just think we should make it easier. And that's not because I necessarily have a major issue with illegal immigrants or I think they're bad people or dangerous people. It's because companies can use
10 seconds.
this to exploit these workers and make it to where they can pay them lower wages.
Thank you.
All right. So, with this is the effects on the economy. As illegal immigrants come over here and work for lower wages, first he said that they also pay taxes. Well, I want to say this, that if they don't have papers, they can't pay taxes. So we have millions of immigrants working these jobs for lower wages, which draws the wages of American people down. Because let me give you a scenario. I want you to think about this. If we have 1 million people in America who will do the job for $10 an hour, and you're trying to get the job, and you go say, hey, can I get this job? I want $15 an hour. And I know I can go hire somebody else for 10, then now the wage gap has come down. The wages go down. And, it's off the books, so they don't have to pay taxes on these employees that don't have papers. I will agree that immigrants that come over here legally or who get papers, they definitely pay taxes. And I'm all for that. I'm more all for stimulating the economy. But if their money isn't on the book, it doesn't affect GDP. It has to actually be reported income. So those people that are affected GDP came legally. And again, there are laws against people coming to our borders without paperwork. And there are reasons for that because it does affect our economy. So it leads to an influx of cheap foreign labor again, which really brings down pay rate for other hardworking Americans. Yeah, so that's all I got.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal.
I think cheap labor is more of a capitalist issue. I just think completely throwing that at the fault of immigrants is untrue. It more has to do with corporations and the way that companies are able to not pay people a living wage. Again, I want illegal immigrants to be able to access documentation so that these companies and corporations can exploit them. I completely agree with Charles that this is an issue and does need to be fixed. But I also think that companies just in general don't want to pay immigrants, illegal or not, or also American-born citizens a good wage. I mean, the federal minimum wage is still like $7.25, I'm pretty sure. Also, undocumented immigrants who don't have social security numbers can still pay taxes. It just goes under a different thing.
Yeah, it actually goes under a different name. It's not their name, another illegal act. So when we're looking at this, also, there's a big strain on our social services and other programs that we have in the infrastructure. We're actually paying out money in welfare, in food stamps, housing people in hotels. And there's got to be something shady going on. You see these hotels blocked off where people can't see in. It's because there are people in America who live in America seeing this, knowing that they can't get what somebody else's citizens can. We're American citizens. We should be able to get American benefits. Why are somebody else's citizens receiving the benefits? Putting a huge strain on our infrastructure. And we're at a 1.6 replacement rate in America right now. And if we don't have taxes paid, our social security system is going to crumble. And we're drawing money from that and crumbling our own infrastructure.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go on to climate change. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 is a landmark United States federal law which aims to curb inflation by possibly reducing the federal government budget deficit, lowering prescription drug prices, and investing into domestic energy production while promoting clean energy. Critics of the Inflation Reduction Act say it fails to ensure accountability and transparency in how the resources are used, heightening the risk for overspending. Furthermore, loopholes in the bill's electric vehicle tax provisions will lead to an increased reliance on China. Environmental regulations raise production costs and lower productivity by requiring firms to install pollution control equipment and change production processes. How should the government address concerns about the economic impact of implementing environmental regulations?
All right. I'll go after you. Okay. All right. Well, I think the government must approach the environmental regulations with caution, considering the potential negative economic impact that they may have on businesses and job creation. While protecting our environment is important, it should not come at the expense of stifling economic growth and innovation. Excessive regulations burden businesses with costly compliance requirements, driving up operation costs and hindering their ability to compete in the global market. This can lead to job losses, reduced investment, and ultimately harm the overall economy. Instead of imposing burdensome regulations, the government should focus on promoting voluntary initiatives and market-based solutions that incentivize businesses to adopt environmentally friendly practices. This approach encourages innovation and allows companies to find cost-effective ways to reduce their environmental footprint without stifling the economic growth. The government should prioritize policies that balance environmental protection with economic prosperity, ensuring that regulations are based on sound science and cost-benefit analysis. Overregulation only hampers businesses and stifles economic opportunity, ultimately hurting the very people it aims to protect. I agree that environmental protection is important. However, the government must exercise restraint when implementing regulations to avoid unnecessary harm to businesses and the economy. By adopting a balanced approach that encourages innovation and voluntary compliance, we can protect our environment while promoting economic growth and prosperity for all Americans. Some incentives, well, there's many incentives. I'm not going to go through them right now. If anybody has a question about them later, I will. Overall, a combination of incentives can be tailored to the specific needs of the circumstances of businesses. It can effectively encourage them to embrace environmentally friendly practices while supporting economic growth and competitiveness.
Thank you very much.
I think paying attention to climate change and also our government making sure that corporations and companies are doing things that are conscious for the environment is vital and very important. I also don't believe that companies would just instill these because they want to, because using fossil fuels, using oil is a lot cheaper, and it's also makes it makes production way quicker. And so I do agree to some extent with the bill that we were talking about that Biden introduced. I would more so be for the Green New Deal. I think it is a constant conversation that climate change protection would destabilize our economy or like stunt economic growth, which I just disagree with. The OECD found that environmental policies have little to no impact on the economy. If anything, they create more jobs. And when we're having this conversation, we have to realize that it is going to look different, right? There's going to be the same amount of jobs, if not more jobs. They just won't be the jobs we currently have. So there'll be less jobs in fossil fuel and oil and mining, and there'll be more jobs in solar panels and reusable energy and windmills and turbines, which when we're talking about climate change, it's kind of like a lot of scientists claim it's like life or death. Like our world could literally end in the next few decades and we won't have access to things like clean water or farms. Our soil will be ruined and we won't be able to produce agriculture. So it is super important. So I think it's vital for our government to make sure that we're implementing policies and also honestly making corporations and companies become more green and use more usable energy.
Rebuttal?
Yeah, so again, I think anytime you got the government regulating businesses, there becomes a gray area where the government's creating profit and creating their own initiatives and narratives. I think that, you know, our country was founded on the principle of small government, that we, the people, have the power. But the more power we put into the government's hands, the more they regulate us. And if you look at our country right now and our deficit, it just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. And we're talking about this green initiative, and we're just, you know, we got to look at the cost. Who's going to pay for it? You are. And right now, I bet none of you can afford to live in an apartment on your own. When I was growing up, I could afford an apartment on my own. These days, it's through the roof, and it's only going to get worse if we don't do something now.
Very much.
Yes.
Next question is, should the government's policies require the widespread adoption of electric vehicles, and what role should the government play in supporting the infrastructure needed for electric vehicle charging stations?
So I actually disagree with the use of electric vehicles, which is probably surprising. I don't support it. Probably not the reason for people assume, but it's actually because Tesla and other electric car companies have been found to use outside labor from other countries like Congo, for example, where little children are being exploited, and also adults are being exploited for labor and being paid close to nothing or nothing at all, and working in terrible conditions, mining cobalt that is necessary to use in electric cars. So I don't support electric cars at all unless we can absolutely make sure that Tesla and these companies are not using and exploiting the labor in other less industrialized countries like Congo, because it is a humanitarian aid crisis and it is absolutely unacceptable. I support things like just bettering our current infrastructure, making sure roads are working, making sure bridges are working, creating more bike lanes, making it to where people can ride a bike if they would like to work, making more walkable cities if that's possible, making more bus lanes, allowing people to have access to public transportation. And that just helps both ways. If you can't afford a car, I completely agree with Charles that a lot of people can't afford rent. Like, a lot of people can't afford rent. A lot of people can't afford basic necessities. So it is important. A lot of people can't afford cars. So it is important to have public transportation and bike lanes. And I also think that will both monetarily better people's lives because they can get to work without a car, and also environmentally it will.
Thank you very much.
Love that response. So I'm just going to piggyback off of that because it seems like we're in complete agreement. I agree with everything that. And I'm going to elaborate further that in America, our power grid is already strained. And if everybody had to go to an electric car, say 5-10 years from now, just to get the power grid up to date where it could handle that, would cost trillions of dollars. And again, more money you're going to be paying. Not to mention, let's just say when these electric cars, their batteries are no longer any good. Now, where do we dispose of them? Now we create even more environmental challenges because we're leaking acid into the soil and other chemicals that are damaging our economy even further. Are they really green? You know, and again, this initiative to switch over to electric, I want you to think about who's going to pay for that. Now, while it's essential to prioritize energy independence, we need to utilize our domestic resources. Right now, we're sitting on a gold mine of our own oil and gas. And if Biden administration has shut down us using our own. We've drained the reserves. But when Trump was in office, we were using our own oil and gas. And in 2019, gas prices were $1.34 a gallon. I want you to think about that. My life would be so much easier if gas prices were still $1.34 a gallon. We have our own supply of gas right here. Yeah, we're buying gas from Russia. We're buying gas from other countries while we're holding back on our own. The American people are suffering. I'm 1,000% in agreement with Zoe. She may not agree with everything I just said, but again, think about who's going to be replacing that power grid. Who's going to pay for that?
10 seconds.
And then it's really counterproductive anyway, because we create more environmental consequences. Thank you.
Buttle?
I do agree with what Charles is saying. We do just create more environmental consequences, both here in America with use of electric cars and also, of course, overseas in countries like Sudan and Congo. So I don't think that's a solution by any means. I do disagree with the point that we don't have the money. I think our government has a lot of money. I think they take a lot of money from the citizens and we gain very little to nothing in return because they spend this money on things like wars and things overseas. So I do agree with Charles like that. We have a lot of issues at home that our government does not care about, and they like to take money from its citizens and not do anything productive like raise minimum wages or lower the cost of housing or lower gas prices. I do think we should be very careful when using oil and fossil fuels because that can get very dangerous for our own ecosystems at home.
Sorry, I forgot to give you the 10-second warning.
No, you're good.
All right, whenever you're ready.
This is a rebuttal, right? Again, I don't think you can disagree with me because everything that Zoe just said, I agree with. But I will say this, is that people aren't going to stop driving. And we're going to weigh whether we're going to do electric, replacing the power grid, paying more for cars. Have y'all seen the price of an electric car? It far outweighs the price of a normal standard gasoline burning car. And, so to make the transition, yes, the government has money. Of course, they don't give it back to us, which is why we have so many homeless people on the street. But we seem to have enough money to fund, again, the border and the people coming across the border. I'm sorry, I went back to that. But he's exactly right. The government has plenty of money. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do some of the things they're doing right now. But they're not going to, and we're going to wind up paying more money than we have to, or than it costs just to put more money in the politicians' pockets to satisfy their narrative.
So we have 10 minutes left. Should we just skip to the open?
Yeah, let's skip
question?
to the audience. Absolutely.
Okay. So audience members will now have the opportunity to pose questions themselves at the microphone or seek clarifications. Those who cannot stay until the end can leave their questions at the SGA table and someone will ask on their behalf. The entire debate will be recorded and uploaded to Engage for later viewing.
Hi, so I want to thank you two for showing up today and having the courage to discuss these issues. My question is, as a country, are we really as politically divided as the media says we are?
Who do you want to answer?
Both.
Okay.
I actually think we're not. So when it comes to political parties, I think political parties are a lot more similar than people think they are. Democrats and Republicans tend to have pretty similar opinions and ideas. They just have different ways of getting there. I also think when it comes to not trusting the government or believing that the government does not have our best interest in hand, both Republicans and Democrats alike both agree on that. I take my stance a little further than a Democrat, so I would consider myself a little more like leftist. And a lot of my family members are more Republican. And 9 times out of 10, we have similar beliefs on how awful our government and the fact that politicians are not doing what they are supposed to be doing, or the fact that interest groups and lobbying is being used to divide the political landscape and to buy out politicians, we agree with that like 9 times out of 10. So no, I don't think we're as divided as the media makes it seem. I think the media's job is to just make Americans feel less communal than we actually are.
I'm gonna agree partly with that. Absolutely, the media is all about ratings, and if they can stir the pot and get ratings, they're gonna get ratings. And of course, there are politicians who fuel this as well. And I'm not gonna talk about one politician or another. I will say that in some instances, that our government is divided, that there is a huge polarization in the parties. But in some cases, there's not. I think that the parties, when it comes to the citizens, are less divided than the parties that come to the government officials. Right now, we have 2 presidents that are at war with each other, like 2 opposing countries. And I think that it's really fair to say that, you know, we've come a long way from where we used to be in our country, when our country could find compromise. I'm just really glad to be in a country, though, where I have free speech and where other people have free speech, and that we can come up here and debate this and find middle ground. And I'll say this, I'm a conservative, he's a leftist, and we work really well together. That's why I say the citizens are less divided than the government. But I think all in all, we still live in the best country in the world, and there's not another country to come up here and sit and do this. So y'all make sure, you know, to understand that you are in the greatest country in the world. You have rights and freedom that most people don't have in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response. And we're going to move on to the next question. Please step up, ask your question, and please say who you are directing it to. Thank you. If it's for both, that's fine. But if it's just for one specific person, go ahead and explain that.
This is my first debate I've ever been to, other than like watching YouTube. So I'm very happy that I got to be here. I don't necessarily have a question. Is that okay? I have like a statement or my opinion. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
This is for both of you. This is mostly for everybody that's listening. I'm nervous, so bear with me, but these are my thoughts. We have a problem with our laws in the way we govern. I think the issue that I really feel like that we have is not that we don't want to help other people outside of the border. I think it's just like you said, we don't have the resources right now, and that's because of the government. That's true. But I also think it's because of us as well. We have resources like these debates where we speak our mind and we say things. But we do a lot of barking and no biting. And I think that's something that we need to change. I don't think that because we're struggling with the choices that we make should affect other people around the world. And that's pretty much what I had on my mind. I don't know. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I swear.
You didn't
No,
offend
thank you.
anybody. Great response.
I do
Yes.
think that's something, you know, we should really think about.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just the president and the government. You know, we can vote now.
Yeah.
You know, we have Congress who are 80 years old. Why are they still there?
Yeah, that's a
You know
great
what I mean?
point. Yeah.
Sorry.
Communities are
Pull it this way. Maybe that close to me. Yeah, sorry. Hey, great.
Sorry about that.
I thought that was great. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
I
sharing
agree.
your thoughts. Amazing.
Yeah,
Love it.
communities are definitely really important. So I suggest everyone definitely try to get out in the community and also just help people around you. It's really important. And also maybe vote. That's a good thing too.
Definitely.
Also
vote.
in local elections, that's
Definitely
vital. That's very important.
Thank you very much for that comment. Does anybody else have more questions? Go ahead and step up and ask your question. Oh, here, let me switch the mic.
Hello. This is my first debate as well. And I have multiple questions about for the both of you, which if it's okay if you want to answer it or not, but mostly I wanted to ask a question about you and you too as well. So let me first talk about oil. You know something about that? Like electric cars and motor cars, stuff like that? All right, so here's my question. Do you remember the 1979 oil crisis that led to America a shortage of gas? Which, how do you say, the lower the gas, the higher the prices. Even if you don't have gas, you had to go to another city, country, or even another state to get them. And do you really think that, how do you say, what will happen is it's going to be another oil crisis, maybe someday this year? Will that happen again? And electric cars will someday dominate this while all cars that runs on oil will now become obsolete, which means leads to many unemployment. So are you prepared for that kind of change? If not, what are you going to do when the next oil crisis becomes so, how do you say, worse than the 1979 oil crisis, which this time it will not lead to my, how do you say, gas prices being high or even a little shortage. More like all gas stations will now be shut down like 30 or 40% across the nation.
I got you. Let me kind of. So you're saying, there was a shortage, and you think that someday the electric cars are just going to be, it's just going to happen no matter what, and that some other country could shut down our oil supply, and that we would be without gas, and if we didn't have electric cars, that we would be stuck. Is that what you're trying to say? I just want to make sure I clarify.
Yes.
Okay, absolutely. So in the oil crisis that we had in the 1970s, we didn't have an oil shortage. We had plenty of oil right here in America. We've always had plenty of oil. They sit on this oil and they won't open it up for American use. We have enough oil to supply us for the next 75 years, even at an exponential growth. Hold on. Now, to say that electric cars are going to dominate the market, again, like I said earlier, the batteries cannot be properly disposed of to keep the environment safe because of all the chemicals and acids that are in them. And if we do start to use that, we're going to create another environmental catastrophe, which is going to go hand in hand with whatever the carbon. But the thing about the carbon is carbon is only 0.04% of our atmosphere. And to say that we keep contributing to the carbon rate, but nobody can tell us what investing trillions of dollars will do and how much it'll bring the carbon down just by doing these electric cars. And until there's a science-based research that can prove that it will fix us, I don't think we should spend trillions of dollars. But I'm sorry, we can only allow one question per person, but I will give Zoe the opportunity.
Yeah, I agree for the most part with what Charles is saying. I genuinely, to the climate crisis, I don't think electric cars are the answer. I think we talked about earlier how expensive electric cars are. It's not accessible to the everyday person. I can afford an electric car. I don't even think afford a regular car, honestly. So I think it honestly is just corporations' way of like making them seem greener, and it's just another like advertisement tactic to try to get people to buy into something because it's like saving the environment, even though like Carl said it's not. And again, it's really, really bad for other countries like Congo. It's not good. So I think I don't think electric cars will ever take over gas cars. I just don't think it's the solution at all.
And I don't think we should eliminate them either. I think people should have a choice in the matter. So maybe a balance between both. Does that answer your question?
That answers.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your question.
Thank you very much. Yes, and we are gonna limit it to one question, one comment per person, just to respect everyone's time. We do have a good amount of people in line, and I'm very glad to see that. And so, but we want to make sure we just move this along and not delay it too long. But thank you. Go ahead and ask a question.
I wanted to ask.
Just tilt it down. Yeah, perfect.
I wanted to ask if you think transgenderism is benefiting our society today, or the transitioning of children specifically.
Who do you want to answer?
Why or why not?
Yeah.
Both of you.
Who do you want to go first?
You. Okay. I don't think transgender people are negatively impacting our world. I think people should have the right to choose what to do with their bodies. It is important to talk about the fact that children are under the age of 18 are not allowed to have surgeries done to their body to transition. So they can't have like genitalia transition or I can't remember the word, but top surgery. That's not happening. I'm pretty sure hormone blockers are able to be given to people under the age of 18. I could be wrong about that. But just in my own personal experience, I just don't think it affects me or honestly anyone else other than the people that are experiencing that. And it is something that is important to the mental health of these people, their ability to transition. And that isn't just surgically, it's also socially being able to transition. I think it's vital for children to be able to do things like cut their hair and change their clothes. And so not surgically transition, but at least socially transition. The suicide rate for trans children is out of this world. It is incredibly high. So we should be accepting and we should be welcoming even to things that we maybe just don't understand. That's my opinion.
Okay. So let me start by saying that I don't have a problem with anybody who wants to be anything they want to be. The reason that I love America is because we're free. If you want to be trans, that's okay. And I will accept you for that. The problem I have with some of the narratives going on, especially in other states like California and things like that, they're trying to compel speech. When you start selling me an ideology and you start indoctrinating children and selling a narrative to children in schools, it should only be focused on academics, not on what gender they are. I'm gonna tell you right now, until I was 12 or 13 years old, I wasn't interested in what sex I was. So when we're looking at the children's point of view, I think that schools are about academics, not about ideologies that feed into this gender characteristic of gender dysphoria. Now, if somebody feels that way, I think, fine. Go be who you want. Go feel how you want. But when it comes to our children, they got schools that aren't telling parents about things that are going on with their children. And the last thing I want to think is that some adult has a secret with my child that I don't know about, that I'm raising. This is my child. And if he does anything else, I'm responsible for it. But you're going to take one thing away from me about my child? Now, I have transgender friends, some of the best people I've ever met. I am not a transphobe. I don't look at anybody any differently. Anybody can be a success in this country. There's nothing holding anybody back. I love everybody the same. Do I agree with it? No. But do you agree with everything I say? No. And that's what this country is all about. Civil discourse. But I say leave our children out of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. Next question.
Hello, my name is Sunil. Actually, I had to give a comment first, a background for the question.
Sure.
Well, basically, the question is more for the since in 2023 we have spent $150 billion in immigration, and since 2018 we had 15 million illegal immigrants coming here. And now in 2023, we have 16.8 million immigrants. And under Biden administration, in the first year, we have 7.5 million. So based on that, and also we had to add that the Ukraine situation that we spent $75 trillion. On that situation, $1 billion on that situation, no, trillion actually. So as an immigrant, I know for sure that they are able to pay taxes, but they don't do it. Most of them, they don't do it. You can get an alien number and get taxes, but they don't do it. Since you already know that we have enough money and you already set all out, like we can have it. How can you gonna determine who's good and who's bad to the country? Because I know as an immigrant that there's immigrants that come here that they say, no, we came here to travel, we came here for tourists, but they're actually for La Mara Salvadoreña, for Salvadorian gangs.
And fentanyl deaths are up
Exactly.
400%.
And then how can you determine if you don't close, like without closing the borders, how are you going to determine who's good and who's bad? For example, me, I came as an illegal immigrant. And now I'm legal and I didn't do nothing wrong, but how you know? How you know I'm gonna? So the question is this, how so? What the government, what's your plan without closing the borders more? What's your plan so we can spend less? Because like you said, the minimum wage here, it's $7. You know how monthly a person makes in this country? By month, $250, $2,500 per month. A normal person. And we're spending billions of dollars outside. So what's the question is that? How will you do it without closing the border? How will you determine that I'm not from the Salvadorian gang, I'm not from Mexico gang or Dominicans? Because I'm Dominican and I know a lot of gangs that came here and tells you, no, we came here to be, go to the beach. And they already have taken care of New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, the Bronx. It's American, Dominican. So how you determine it? That's my question. I have another one, but it's only one person.
Only one.
Thank you. Stick around while we're in.
Yeah, I think it's just hard to determine in general. I think even with closed borders, it's incredibly difficult to determine what people's intentions are or not. And again, majority of the immigrants that are coming in are seeking asylum. I do agree with you. I'm sure there is a percentage of people that are coming here with not good intentions. Now, statistically, immigrants are, I think it's like 30% less likely than a white born American to be incarcerated and to commit a crime. So from my understanding, when it comes to statistics, it is true. Okay. It is true. Especially because it's literally their lives. Like they will be deported if they're caught of a crime or convicted of a felony. A lot of these immigrants want to stay here. They did not cross the border and walk that far through one of the most dangerous border in the world to just be deported. So statistically, they are way less likely to commit crimes. Now, is fentanyl being like funneled over here? Yeah, absolutely. Are drugs being like funneled to here or smuggled here? Yes, they are. But I will say, it's a business. It's a business, just like anything else. Just like the distribution of arms and weapons, drugs. It is a business, and it is a business that our CIA and our FBI and our government love. They make money from it.
Yeah, but the main situation is that people that come here to do drugs and to sell drugs, they don't care about Americans. They don't care about this country. They just want to get money and get out. So the main problem is it hasn't answered the question. How can I determine I'm not a gang? How are you gonna do it? I can do it because in my country, in Dominican Republic, they do it with the Haitian border. They do it. They know already. But most of I'm not being racist, that's normal.
No, it's not racist.
In Haiti, there's rich people that you have no idea. There's people that are being rich since France. They have a lot of money. But what they most commonly come to my country is the poor, the low income advantage. Mm-hmm. So that's why the people said, So my question is, we have to my statement is we have to close the border a little bit more so we can have the time. There's people that have decades. I have 1 year, 2 years to be legal here in this country because they were overwhelmed with all these cases. And at the end of the day, that's not true. The statistics says that there's more likely an immigrant to kill a person in a drug problem. It's only surpassed by Black people killing Black people. The only ethnic group that does it more than Hispanics, when they do the immigrant, when they have an immigrant situation, gang situation, it's Blacks. Yeah. 46%.
Right.
So let me go ahead.
Thank you for your comment.
Let me interject before you go. So I'm gonna kind of ride off what Zoe said and kind of answer something you said. Zoe said earlier we need more courts. which I think is true. We should never let anybody come into our country without having documents on them, a number on them, and being able to keep up with them, just like they can keep up with me and you. Now, you went through the work of becoming legal. So how does it make you feel that somebody can come in without doing the work and get all the benefits you worked so hard for? It's gotta be upsetting, right? Yeah.
Wait, can I clarify though? Didn't you
Hold
say that you came here illegally?
He did came
I came
illegally.
here illegally, but I
Illegally?
turned, yeah, I came here illegally, but I turned, like, not legally. I came here legally, but once the time comes, I got married, I got settled, then, you know.
Then you
I got
went through
married
the
for
proper
love, I
channels
do
to
the
get
process, I submit everything that I have to submit because I was for love, and I have my papers. I got a green card.
And you got papers.
And then I know persons that's there being here waiting way long. Yeah, Biden sent a little paper that is put you longer time waiting because they don't have enough people because of that.
But let me go back to what
Yeah,
she
it
said.
takes
We
a long
need
time.
more courts. We need to vet people. We need to make sure we know who's in our country. People shouldn't be here without being documented. You know, if that's the case, then maybe I should lose my documentation so I can go off the grid and get taken care of. You know what I'm saying? I think if we want to be equal, let me get some checks. Let me get a hotel room. Let me get some food stamps. Let me take my documentation away. All the tickets I got, let those disappear. You don't know who I am. It's not fair. But we do. And I'm okay, again, with people coming across our borders, but they need to be vetted. So that's the answer to that.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead and turn it on. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Thank you. So, hi, my name is Dr. Metkova, as I saw you yesterday.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. This is my first debate so far, and I've seen a live performance online, basically, at Vanderbilt University. That's where I'm from, and also I'm from Bulgaria. And I was thinking about how police officers are in the executive position that I really declare of. And based on the question I'm asking is that why did the Declaration of Independence, why is that? I'm asking for both of you. So
I'm sorry, did you repeat the question? Just the question.
yeah, what did it declarate of the independence?
So the Declaration of Independence was a document created for America, for Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it gave us the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. So is that answering your question?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, and I agree that we all have valid rights, and for a long time there was a lot of systemic racism in our country, but a lot of that's been alleviated today because each and every person here, there are no laws preventing people from succeeding so long as they are here legally. Yes, some people won't go so far if they're not documented, but everybody here has an opportunity. Yes, people face challenges. Of course they do. I'm just going to say this. I may not be, a minority, but I come up in an abused home. I was a drug addict from the age of 6. I've been to prison. I've had all kinds of things happen in my life, and I refuse to be a victim. So I don't know if that's answering the question. I think I'm following what you're saying, but there are no victims.
Because
we're only victims of our decisions.
yeah. So my birthday is July 5th, and Independence of America is July 4th. So every year of July 4th is every birthday, and I'm born after July 4th. You get the
Amen. And you're free.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
2003.
Does Zoe want to make a comment?
No, I agree with what Charles said. Yeah.
You're great.
Cool. Thank you for your
the comment.
question.
We love your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Love you guys.
We're going to move on to the next question. Go ahead and ask it and say who you're directing to.
Hey, how are you guys? My name is Marcelo Guzman, and I have a question for you. I believe your name is Zoe. So, I'm a Cuban immigrant. My parents and I came here. I was 11. They sold everything they had to come here, went through a 9-year process to be able to come here legally through the right channels. So with that context, my question is, how do you plan on keeping a registry on everybody that comes to your supposed open border? And also you said that illegal immigrants are able to pay taxes. Outside of sales tax, I don't see how that would be physically possible.
Not legally.
I wasn't able to answer that earlier. It's because, so you don't need a social security number to pay taxes. You can use a single file taxpayer number, which is what immigrants use, both undocumented and documented immigrants use to pay taxes. I didn't mention that earlier. Also, to answer your other question, to have a registry, what I mentioned earlier is I do believe we should have more ports. So I don't think people should just, well, I do. I support open borders, but I also support more ports, right? And I also think when it comes to documentation, if you are seeking asylum and you are running from something, which most of them usually are, it is hard to bring over documentation and get the right paperwork together, which is why usually immigrants that are able to use the lawyers when they're doing like their interviews and such, they're like fear incitement interviews to be able to claim asylum and be registered as an asylum seeker. It's just hard to gain all those documents. So I just think asylum seekers and immigrants, one, we should have more ports. Two, I do support legal immigration. I just think it should be easier and a quicker process and not take as long. I also don't believe that you should get deported straight away. People should just be given more time and more access and more resources to be able to gain all the documents that they need to be able to seek asylum or whatever their reason is to come over as an immigrant.
So with all the problems that we have in the country, so you're saying you would like it to be easier for more people to come in the United States, and on top of that, we give them more aid? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we aren't giving immigrants a ton of aid. Like,
That's not true.
That's not true.
we are giving them aid, but to claim
What
that
do we
we're
give our
giving
own
them
citizens?
just a ton of resources that we don't give our citizens, they're unable
That's not
to
true.
apply
That's
for
not true.
Medicare or
That's not
Medicaid
true.
unless they pay 10 years plus of taxes. That is true.
Absolutely.
They're not allowed to apply for Medicare, or they have to pay an egregious amount for Medicare unless they pay over 10 years of taxes.
That's not true. As a matter of fact, this is anecdotal evidence, but I know a lot of Cuban Americans. I also know that most of them are on food stamps and Medicaid and a whole bunch of other things while in their backyard having 2 boats and 3 jet skis. That's not true. We're giving way too much aid.
Yeah. I don't think you can claim anecdotal evidence as obsolete. You don't know every single immigrant or every single immigrant story. And also, it is statistically true that they have to at least be
I mean, you're doing anecdotal evidence right now. I can just say
It's
statistical in front of my anecdotal evidence, and then that makes it statistical.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comment. Does anybody?
So I want to say this, and I'm gonna ride with you here. So bottom line is, there's a reason it's called illegal immigrant. Should I be able to sell cocaine to children and not go to jail? Right? Should I be able to sell children? Because that's what a lot of them are doing. And most of the people coming across the borders are paying cartel members to get across these borders. So we're actually supporting more crime. So if you want to talk about the truth, but the truth of the matter is that there are hotels around, and I've researched this. This isn't anecdotal evidence. When I do my research, I do my research. You can ask my Cuban Puerto Rican wife if I don't set up 8 to 10 hours a day researching this. This is what I do for my time. This is my pastime. And these people are being put up in Sheraton hotels. They're closing down public schools to house them. They're giving them $2,500 checks every month. And a lot of these people coming across the borders are male, born male, 18 to 30 years old, and they're not bringing families with them. A little peculiar, if you ask me. I believe there's other reasons, but I won't elaborate because that would be anecdotal evidence.
Thank you for your comment, Charles. That being said, we're going to move on to the next participant.
Hi, guys.
Hey, man.
This is my first time here in debate. Came here 5 or 4 years ago from Cuba. So getting accustomed to freedom of speech. So I think
It's nice, isn't it?
oh yeah.
Awesome.
So well, just a little question, because I think if we want to set a good future, we need to look back at our legacy. So for both of you, from the last 50 or 60 years, what presidential term should be the standard to have a successful America today?
Ronald Reagan. Definitely Ronald Reagan.
And
Without
why-
a doubt.
Yeah, and why do you think so?
Well, Ronald Reagan, he was a logical president who was all about the fundamentals of what it took to create a good government. He was strict on drug laws. He was strict on immigration. He reigned over one of the best economies in American history, and he helped move civil rights forward. Because once Ronald Reagan come into office, a lot of things started to change for many Americans. I seen it with women more than anything, because my mother was 15 when she had me in 1972. And then she was single. My mom didn't have a lot of opportunities. And we had a real hard time growing up in a very poor house where she had to jump from man to man who would beat her. And, women could be taken advantage of a lot. But in the 80s, something happened. There was a culture created in America that allowed everybody to be successful. And Ronald Reagan had a lot to do with that. So, there's a whole lot of other things I could say. There's one thing I'm blanking right now that I wanted to say about Ronald Reagan today, but definitely the Ronald Reagan era. Definitely not Jimmy Carter.
You're just like my father, basically.
Well, I lived during that time, so it may be a little harder for Zoe to understand that. She is a little younger, but she's a very, very intelligent. I'm very proud of her for her presentation today. This isn't like we're fighting back and forth. I learned something from her today, but that's my answer.
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat your question one more time?
Oh, from the last, well, for you, let's say from this century, what presidential term should we set as a standard for the future?
No, I think he's saying, what president do you think had the best America?
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to have a great answer for this. I honestly don't think any of them. I also, like Charles said, I am younger. So I'm 19. So I've only been able to vote since, a year. And I also got into politics when I was 14. So
it's
not
very
long
impressive
time.
though.
Thank you. From my current understanding, I don't really like any presidents we've had ever. I don't like Obama. I have issues with Obama, especially with his policies over in the Middle East. I think a lot of our politicians are war criminals and just very terrible people, and I don't think they have America's best interest at heart. I don't like Trump. I don't like Biden. I think it's a travesty that these are our options.
Too much government.
To an extent, yes. Too much government. Too much bad governing. And very little community-based governance. Yeah, that's my answer. Okay. Sorry, it's not a great answer. I just don't like any of them, honestly, at all.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks to you for answering.
Thank you.
Great question.
Thank you very much for your comment. Go ahead and ask your question or comment and make sure to explain who you're directing it to.
So this is my first time too.
Hey, turn it up.
So this is my first time too, and I'm asking this to both. So do you think they should defraud the police?
Defund?
Defund? Yeah.
Okay.
It's a quick question.
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, so this is an easy one for me. You like people running up to your car and breaking your window out, pulling you out of the car? Do you like to have stores in your neighborhood where you can go shopping? Do you want your lawnmower to be safe in your front yard? Do you want to be able to call somebody when somebody's shot in your house? Because if we did defund the police, there are bad cops. Don't get me wrong. I know there are. I've encountered some. And I know that, there are bad cops in our society. You know what? I work at a restaurant. We have bad employees too. They should not work there. And I wish they would go, and they don't. Some of them talk mess to customers. Some of them probably spitting food. You have unethical people in all aspects of every job. But that doesn't mean that all cops are bad. Should we defund the police? We need a safe country. We absolutely shouldn't defund the police. What we should do, if you really want to do something about it, I don't know if any of you have ever gotten on YouTube and watched auditing. People audit the police. Anytime you see a cop, get your camera out and start recording. You want to do something about making police actually do their job? Exercise your constitutional rights. Go into public buildings, and when they tell you to leave, tell them you have a First Amendment right to be there. You know, and when they ask you for ID, tell them you have a Fourth Amendment right to be safe and secure in your personal effects and property. And when they tell you you need to talk, tell them you have a Fifth Amendment right to keep your mouth shut and a First Amendment right to open it. You want to do something about the police? We got the most powerful weapon there is. We don't defund the police. We need first responders. You want to defund hospitals? Of course not. Of course not. We want to be safe. We need more good cops, and we need stricter penalties for bad cops, but definitely don't need to defund our safety.
Yeah, I don't agree with completely defunding the police. I do think that, kind of Charles somewhat mentioned, there are bad cops. I think there's a lot of bad cops. I also think that they are able to get away with a lot. Recording the police, I do think, is a very good thing to do. I disagree with, I just don't think the whole, like, I have my First Amendment right, I have my Fifth Amendment right, is going to work. A lot of cops are shoot first, ask questions later. Like, there's been kids, like Tamir Rice was shot and killed. There was a little black boy that was playing with a Nerf gun in his community park. He was shot and killed. The body cam footage was literally the cop got out of the car, asked no questions, and shot and killed him. It is tragic. Like it is incredibly true that cops tend to be violent. They're usually very power hungry. And I just think there's a lot of evidence of cops not using their power for good and trying to be the justice system instead of what they're supposed to do, which is enforce the justice system, maybe get people to calm down. And just also, they don't try to de-escalate the situation. I feel like a lot of the time they're making it 10 times worse. I also think during like mental health crises or like homeless people, if they're having maybe an episode, they're on fentanyl, I think cops should be prepared for that. And I just don't think they are. I'm not for sure, so I probably shouldn't even say this, but I'm quite positive that the training for cops is not extensive and it does not take long at all for them to become police officers. So I honestly think we should expand on that. I think they should be taught more about mental health, how to de-escalate, how to not pull out their weapon first and use other means.
I'm gonna continue on that. And she hit a lot of real good points that I don't disagree on. But again, your question was, should we defund the police? No, we should fund better training for our cops because they don't know our rights. If you ask a police officer what the 5 elements of the First Amendment is, none of them know. RAPS, religion, assembly, petition,
press and speech.
Speech and what's the P?
Press,
press. They don't know that, RAPS. They don't know what the Third Amendment is. No housing during wartime or during peace. They don't know the Second, well, they all know the Second Amendment. They don't know the Fourth or the Fifth. They all know the Fifth, but they don't know and they don't understand case law. And so, instead of defunding the police, I think there should be an extensive program where police are trained in case law, like guilt versus Cunniff, guilt versus Cunniff, people versus just different case laws, man, that protect us with our amendments. There's plenty of case law out there. I encourage you to study it. But I want to say this, that anytime you encounter the police, go live. Don't just record, go live. Because you will catch the bad ones. But a lot of times you'll catch the good ones. But I will say this to Zoe's argument too. There are a lot of things the police do that are victimless crimes, that are petty. And I get tired of that, pulling somebody over for a taillight being out and then asking them for ID. No, pull me over and say, hey, do you know your taillight's out? Hey, just get it fixed, write your license plate, but they're wanting to run your name and everything else. That's ridiculous. That's money not well spent when we got as much crime as we do. write less tickets, fight more crime, get better constitutional training, teach our cops to respect our rights. But defund, nah, our world's not safe enough to do that. Thanks for your question. That was a great question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that question and comment. We want to give the audience one final opportunity to ask any more questions or comments before we wrap up the debate event. Does everybody feel resolved? All right.
Hey, don't leave here with a question. If you got something you want to say, feel free. We won't hold it against you. I'm just glad you came. And thank you for letting us share our views.
So that being said, we're gonna.
I feel like you got something to say.
Oh,
come on.
Something to say?
Yeah, I can tell she was about.
She had a little cold.
Or you were about to get up. Come on.
You got some cold feet. It's all right. It's warm up here. You know.
I don't want you to leave here not saying what you want.
It is really warm.
All right. Especially for you.
I'm
right?
sweating. Yeah.
You're in the hot seat.
Right, tilt it down.
I don't know anything, but there was a thing where our senator put a bunch of homeless people from Miami to like an island. Do you guys know anything about that?
I haven't heard nothing about that.
I also haven't heard.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard anything about that?
I just know it happened like a while back, and then the people of that island helped give water, crustables.
Oh, so he took them out and had them help people.
I mean,
no, I think it sounds like he removed them from the place they were staying, and the community helped them, not Ron DeSantis.
Oh, the community helped the homeless people he put on the island.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But none of them asked me who.
Was that here in Florida or New York?
Both. I don't know the full source, but I just.
But I mean, let's just say that happened, and I believe you.
Yeah.
No, we're going with this premise. But the question, are you asking us what we think about it, or?
Yeah. What do you think about moving people to other states?
Well, I think that if any government official did that, they're public servants. And George Washington said, "Beware of what did he say? A dangerous servant and a fearful master." Yeah, we're supposed to be the masters, and the government's supposed to be the servants. Dangerous servants, fearful masters. Which I see that a lot. Which Zoe was pointing at when she was talking about rogue cops and their ways that they act. When they want to pull you out of the car, hold you at gunpoint, shoot people. Not all cops are like that. But any senator who would take somebody and displace them against their will is violating our very Constitution, and he should be put in prison.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, 1,000%. We're free here.
Okay.
That doesn't sound free to me. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Great question.
Yeah, thank you.
I love it. What's your name?
Lily.
Nice to meet you, Lily. Thank you again. Anybody else? We got time for one more. Don't sit here and
Yeah,
wish
we
you'd
got
said
time
it
for
later.
one more. Anybody else have a question?
Don't wish you said it later.
No.
You don't have to be scared. We respect anything you say.
Oh, here we are.
Oh, this
We got
awesome.
one. All right, here we go.
So I have a question about the open border debate. So you're saying you're pro open border, right?
Yes.
I wasn't here for a majority of the conversation. Me and my friend kind of just dropped by. My biggest thing with it is I feel like the people in our country right now are barely struggling and getting by to begin with. I don't think bringing even more people in will do any good in general, even if they're seeking asylum or something like that. Because I know people that are teachers and have full-time jobs and they're living in their car currently.
Yeah.
And even my own siblings struggle to find housing. So where are we going to be even housing these people if our own population can't even afford to buy a house, buy an apartment, or even just live their regular lives, even though they're coming into our country illegally?
Right. I think that's a really valid question. You probably didn't hear this earlier, but I completely agree that our government does not care about American citizens, and a lot of people cannot afford rent right now. Their jobs are not paying them high enough wages. Corporations and companies don't care about their workers or labor rights or protection or security. I also think a lot of people don't have access to the social security system that we have or the social programs that we have. But I think to blame immigration on the failing of our government to care about the current American citizens is just wrong. I don't think it's going to solve anything by closing the borders and saying immigration is the fault of us not having enough resources and money and social programs to like support our own citizens currently. It's the fault of our government. It's where we're putting money. It's what we're spending money on. Like the military and like oil instead of things like infrastructure, and also not passing legislation to make companies have to up the minimum wage and pay their workers more, and to make sure that companies are safe and workers are being able to utilize the rights they should have. I don't think closing the borders is going to solve that. It's more like communities and current American citizens and also immigrants who have the legal documentation to vote and be part of that process to pressure our government into actually caring about us and to doing these things.
But you genuinely do believe that with them here, it's still going to help. Like my thing is, yeah, you're saying that it's perfectly fine to let tons of people in, but we don't even, like you said, not have the infrastructure to take those people in.
But the thing is we do have the infrastructure to take these people in. Even when Title 42 was happening during the Trump and Biden administration, which was the most strict border patrol we've ever had, there was almost nearly the same amount of immigrants trying and attempting to come over. There's not going to be a massive influx all of a sudden of immigrants that are trying to seek asylum. I also think instead of putting a ton of money into border control and deportation, that costs hundreds of thousands, like getting people away from the border, we also could be helping these countries better their like economies and their current political situations. This gets into like a whole nother topic, but like America has destabilized a ton of countries, like Honduras, for example, which is why so many of these people from Honduras, from Mexico, from all these South American countries are even now attempting to come over here.
When was Honduras stable?
We've gone over to their countries and taken their resources and promoted political destabilization.
Those countries were never stable.
Because of us, because of the West.
Stable. Never. There's not a time that they had a great economy. So to say we destabilized them, that would mean they had to be stable at the time. But let me just go into this, and I'm not going to rebuttal that. I'm just going to say that if you haven't heard what I said, I stand on open borders. I stand on vetting people. Now I stand on closed borders as long as they're vetting people. I agree we should allow them in. We should know every person that lives in America. They should have a number. Are some going to slip through? Sure, but we don't need 3 million a year coming through unvetted. So, because that's a dangerous situation. Again, who knows? Any day now, we could have over 100 people, 200 people that are on the terrorist watch list. Out of the 3 million, small percentage. But again, it only took 6 people to kill 5,000 people on 9/11. So, we got people coming in here unvetted. It's a dangerous situation. I agree with Zoe. We should have a better process for get them in, get them through faster. You're never going to be able to judge somebody's intention, but if you can give them a number, track them in the government, have them legal here, then we can at least have an identity on them when they do something and have consequences where they can suffer the consequences right here in our country. But, they can keep changing names. Current state. But I think that's going to be it, unless there's something else. And I want to finish up by saying something.
Well, we want to give one final opportunity, making sure going once, going twice, that the audience ask all the questions that they want to ask. Is everybody done? This guy wants to go again.
He said he wanted to be in the debate, but I guess we didn't get back in time. We're going to do another one next semester, man. We're going to get you in. So I want to just say this. I want y'all to give it up for Zoe, man. What a plethora of information. She did a great job, and I thank you all for coming out. I do want to say this. No matter what, we're in the greatest country in America, in the world. We can come up here and voice our opinions. We can speak. We can have differences of opinion. And I've learned something from Zoe today, and I hope maybe she learned something from me. We agreed on some things. where, you know, a lot of times if you're on the left and the right, sometimes, you know, people think that that is polar opposite. Well, we've proven differently today. And I want you to know that in this country, you can be anything you want to be. You're right here at school, you're learning. You should be proud. You should take advantage of this education to get the most out of it you can. And you are going to be success. When you wake up every day, tell yourself, I'm success. When you smile in the mirror, it's going to smile back at you. Look at yourself and tell yourself 10 times in the morning, I love you, and nothing can stop me. Nothing can stop me. And as long as you have that I can, I will, I must attitude, nothing will stop you. Whether the borders are open or closed, whether it's pro-life, pro-choice, whether we're green or not, it doesn't matter. We're still free here. So make decisions, stand on your beliefs, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Thank y'all for coming out.
Yeah, thank you guys.